In 5 minutes' time, Foghorn Leghorn is the star of our Cartoon Time story, Dixie Fryer. First, over to ITN in London for the news at 1:20.
The Labour Party says another Conservative government would mean more charges in a National Health Service and a system of rationing for health treatment. The Conservatives say people who accuse the government of not caring should note they are the only party with the economic strength to care. Dr. Owen of the Alliance predicted that the Conservative share of the polls would drop to 37% and hung Parliament.
Labour's health service spokesman said Mrs Thatcher was surrounded by policy advisers and even health ministers bent on introducing more NHS charges. And the new Tory system of measuring health service efficiency by assessing the useful life expectancy of patients would only increase the present divide in the standard of care.
But a new health divide is coming on the scene, in which, for instance, a pensioner who landed on the Normandy beaches on D-Day would have to give up their place in the queue for a hip replacement operation to a merchant banker, more valuable to this government, always presuming that the merchant banker hadn't gone private.
Labour also accused Mrs Thatcher of being, as they put it, like a tabby cat caught in her unravelling knitting over education. She herself once more defended her education proposals and warned Labour she was getting ready to turn her fire on their policies, even though she preferred to concentrate on her own.
We shall also direct rather more of our attention to the Labour Party iceberg manifesto, to the bit which shows above water and the enormously larger amount which is below water. But you would expect us to continue to put our positive policies here. But we shall have a go at the others. We have to, because we believe that those policies will be absolutely disastrous.
For the Alliance, David Owen predicted that the polls would soon show the Tories with less than 37% of the vote. The main Alliance attack was concentrated on what they see as the main Tory weak spot, their policies on education.
In our view, what they add up to is a deliberate act of demolition on the national unified education system that we have spent 40 painful years putting together. They will produce divided schools for a divided nation.
The BBC's correspondent Michael Burke has arrived back in Britain after being expelled from South Africa. He said he was more sad than emotional. Burke and ITN's Peter Sharp were told to leave after reporting on violent protests in Cape Town.
BBC correspondent Michael Burke arrived back in Britain this morning, 2 days after his ITN counterpart Peter Sharp. Officially, their work permits weren't renewed, but their having to leave the country at a week's notice is widely regarded as a deportation in all but name. After being greeted by BBC colleagues, Mr Burke was asked how much damage the expulsions would do to South Africa's image.
Well, I don't suppose it will help a great deal, but then I don't actually suppose that the South African government is really too concerned about what its image is like in Britain and America at the moment.
You feel bitter about what's happened to you?
No, actually, not at all, in a strange sort of way. I know it sounds silly, and one ought to feel rather upset and angry, but more sad and disappointed, actually.
Both news organisations intend to replace the expelled correspondents. John Draper, ITN, Heathrow.
Cricket and the third and final one-day international between England and Pakistan got off to a sensational start at Edgbaston. England won the toss and put the tourists in. The lunchtime score is 132 for 3 after 37 overs.
Sergeant Major Gatting, whose troops had mucked it up without him at Trent Bridge, was back to pick up the campaign. And with the very first ball of the match, the latest recruit Thomas gave England a dream start, trapping Mudasa. And with his fourth, it was goodbye to Mansour too, as Richards swooped. But soon the Pakistani star Javed had his measure to bring him back down to earth. At the other end, Ramiz was scoring just as freely, as Thomas found fielding against these two just as frustrating. The partnership was only broken when Sergeant Major Gatting intervened to brilliantly run out Ramiz. Charles Smith, ITN Sport, Edgbaston.
And in World Cup rugby, Wales beat Ireland by 13 points to 6 in Wellington in New Zealand. And that's the lunchtime news at ITN.
Hello. In 10 minutes' time, Gus Honeybun's magic birthday, if I can wake him up. You're going to wake up in time, are you? First of all, something just as mad as all that as we joined Foghorn Leghorn in cartoon time.